Hey, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. Today we're going to be talking about the required annual, quarterly, monthly filings for a California LLC. And specifically, I'm talking about government filings. So not things you may need to do with some private company or anything like that. We're talking about the different government filings that you're going to need to be doing on an annual, on a quarterly, on a monthly basis, or even more often for a limited liability company. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about California. Now, these same kind of filings happen no matter where you are, but the timing of them may be different in other states and also who you have to file it with. So let's get into it. So exactly what filings you need to do does depend upon the kind of business that you have, how big it is, employees, all that kind of stuff. So first, let's talk about what filings does every single LLC in California have to do. And there really are two of them that you always, for sure, no matter where you are, what kind of business you are, whether or not you make money, whether or not you're even in business, actually operating, or if you just own an LLC and haven't started yet, you'll need to do these two things. The first one is a statement of information. In other states, this is like an annual report, except in California, the LLC only needs to file it every 2 years. So it's not annual, it's biannual, which as biannual, I mean every 2 years. Sometimes that means twice a year. English is not necessarily the best language about things like this. But anyway, the statement of information is a filing you have to do right after you create your LLC. You have to do it within the first couple of months. Just do it right away as soon as the LLC is formed. And then you do it every 2 years thereafter based upon the month of when you filed. This is just telling them, it's information. It's telling them your updated address, who are the owners of the LLC, who's your registered agent, what kind of business are you in. It is very, very basic. Once you do one filing, if nothing changes, you just do a filing saying nothing changed. And right now the fee for that is $20. Very much not a big deal. If you have access to your LLC account in BizFile, you can do the filing online. And I've done videos about that. I'll post them below. The second thing you need to do is file a tax return. It doesn't matter how you have structured your LLC to be taxed, you're going to have to file a tax return and pay at least an $800 a year franchise fee, minimum tax for the LLC. Now, if you have an LLC that's taxed as a sole proprietorship, you'll be filing a little bit differently than an LLC taxed as a partnership, or LLC taxed as a S Corp or a C Corp for that matter. It can be taxed as either kind of corporation. But if you're an LLC taxed as a sole proprietorship, while the taxes, like the taxes on any income get passed through to your personal tax return, the LLC itself still files a form with the state of California. And you have to pay the $800 a year franchise fee. This is kind of one of the big problems with having an LLC in California. Now, in the first year, it may be waived, but it's only going to be waived for a very short period of time. Like that rule is changing. It'll go back to the way it used to be before, where it doesn't get waived the first year. So I'm mentioning that now in case you happen to be watching the video right after I make it and post it. But if you're watching it later, then the first year may not be free. This is a law that has gone back and forth. So you have to check to see if it applies to you. So once we get past those two things that every LLC is going to need to do, at least annually, or in the case of a statement of information, every other year, once you get that first one done, what are the other filings that you're going to have to do? So this really depends on where you're located, the kind of business you're in, the size of your business, this kind of things. So the first thing that you may need to do are quarterly tax deposits. So if your business is actually making money, then with the IRS, they want you to not wait till the end of the year to pay your taxes. They want you to do quarterly tax deposits to kind of keep things up. Now, it can actually be complicated how much you need to pay and whether or not you need to do it at all, because it depends on what other taxes you're already giving them. Like if you have a day job and this is your side gig and it doesn't make that much money and you're already paying taxes that are withholdings coming out of your paycheck and for your day job, you might not need to do quarterlies because maybe it's not enough. Also, it's also based upon a calculation of what happened the years before. This is really complicated. Okay. So you'd want to use some kind of software to do this or have someone just do it for you and figure it out for you. But it's something to be aware of that they want their money ahead of time. State of California. State of California also wants you to pay that $800 ahead of time. Now, it's very common for LLCs to not pay it ahead of time and just pay it at the end and pay the penalty because the penalty is actually very, very small as of right now when I'm recording this video. I can't tell you that's going to be small in the future. Also, you can actually owe more than $800 if your business makes a lot of money. But if your business is making that much money, you can pay someone else to figure that out, okay? So this is the kind of thing that when your business makes a lot of money and you really have to be doing these quarterlies, you want to have an accountant, at least a bookkeeper, if not an accountant, figuring out how much profit you're making on a dynamic basis every month, every quarter, so you can set aside money for taxes and then do quarterly tax deposits. The second thing is tax returns that are actually completely separate returns. So if you have an LLC taxed as a partnership, or an LLC taxed as an S corporation, or an LLC taxed as a C corporation, partnerships, S corporations, C corporations all file a tax return. Now, C corporation pays taxes on income, while S corp and LLC taxed as a partnership, the tax on profits is passed through to the owners. You still got to file a return to tell the IRS what happened, okay? I do not recommend that people do their own partnership, S corp, or C corp tax returns. For most people, that is too complicated. I do my own S corp return now, but for many years I didn't, mostly because my business is actually much more simple than it used to because I don't have employees and things anymore. But for most people, that's going to be a return that you can't do yourself. There isn't like TurboTax doesn't have an S corp tax return the last time I looked. This is something you'd have to actually use paper tax returns or PDF tax returns and fill that out. And that is probably beyond the scope for what most people are willing to do on their own. So I'd recommend you have someone help you with that. But that's going to be an annual return that you file. The third thing is if you have employees. So you may, obviously, if you hire people who are employees, you have employees. If you're an LLC taxed as a S corp or a C corp, then you are probably one of the employees of the LLC. Maybe you're the only one. For my corporation, right now, I'm the only employee. I've had 5 employees in the past, but right now I'm the only one. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to get filed. I'm not going to go into all of that stuff because honestly, you need to pay someone else to do that. There are so many things. There are things that get filed on an annual basis, things that get filed quarterly, things that get filed monthly, things that go through every paycheck. I mean, it is way more than you want to deal with. Generally speaking, things will get filed on a federal level and on a state level with the IRS and with the state agency that handles that. You can have a person that you pay, an accountant, who does that payroll stuff for you. You can use a payroll company. I personally recommend and use Gusto for that. I have used a lot of the fancier payroll companies in the past, and including I've used QuickBooks Online payroll thing. I found that they were kind of either way too expensive and overkill for when you just have a couple employees, or it got all messed up. And when it gets messed up, it sucks. You got to pay penalties. It's no good. Gusto, for me, has done a great job, and I think they're very, very affordable. And their base amount that they do, does all the basic filings. And then you can also add in extras that they try to upsell you to when you have more employees and you want to set up a 401k and you want to have HR and all this stuff that's available there. They even helped me set up workers' comp when I had another employee and I needed workers' comp. So something to look at is Gusto that I recommend because they'll do those filings for you. Now, if you're hiring your first employee, you will need to register as an employer. That is part of setting up to have an employee. So this is the first time doing it. You'll need to do that yourself. Once you register as an employer, then Gusto kind of takes over the rest of that. But you have to do the initial setups to give them the paperwork and things. The next thing that you'll need to do on an annual basis is 1099s. So if you hire any contractors to do work for your business, you'll have to do a 1099, which if you haven't done that before or gotten one before, at the end of the year in January, you look at January of the next year, you look over the whole last year and say, oh, did I pay this person at least $600? And then you prepare something for them that gets sent to the IRS and gets sent to them. And then it shows how much money they, were paid by you. So that is something that you will be doing on that annual basis based on what happened the year before. And for a lot of people, if you're hiring someone to do your tax returns, they'll also do the 1099s as well. Also, if you're hiring a payroll provider like Gusto, they can do the 1099s. So you may be able to find a service that you're already using that will do the 1099s for you. Now, the next thing you need to do, if you are selling products or anything that is subject to sales taxes, you need to register for a seller's permit and file sales tax returns and do the sales tax payments. How often? Depends on your business. Maybe annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. Probably not daily because you're probably not doing that a volume of sales, but it'll probably be either monthly, quarterly, or annual for your volume of sales that you're most likely doing if you're watching this. But there will need to be the deposits of the sales taxes that you've collected that you give over to them, and then the sales tax returns. Now, if you're using some kind of system, a lot of the systems will actually do the sales tax calculations for you and even turn it over to the state of California for you. So it depends on what system you're using, but you'll still need to file the actual returns. The next thing you need to do is on a local basis. So in California, on a local basis, you may need a business license or business tax certificate, something like that from usually your city or town, or if you're in an unincorporated area, might be from your county. Typically, I think almost always, you have to renew that every year. Sometimes it's based upon the month of when you started. Sometimes it is literally an annual thing. Sometimes it's in January annually. Sometimes it's like in June or July annually. You know, they all have the different rules. So you have to look at, do you need a business license or business tax certificate or whatever they call it in your area? And then every year you're going to have to be paying that. If you have a DBA, which in California is called a FBN, fictitious business name registration, you're going to renew that every 5 years. So that's, much longer time frame, but something that you need to look at if you're a sole proprietorship that has a DBA or FBN, or an LLC or corporation that maybe have that. Also, every 5 years, you're going to need to go ahead and renew that. If you have a trademark, that's another thing that at 5 years, you renew it, and then at 10 years, and then every 10 years thereafter. So another thing that needs to be renewed pretty far out, but on a regular basis. And when you do the trademark renewal, you have to actually show that you're still using it. The last thing you want to look at are filings that you need to do for your particular industry. So if you're a restaurant, you're going to need to get inspections and all kinds of health things because you're selling food. If you're a lawyer, you have to pay an annual fee for your licensing. So it depends if you have some kind of licensing, some kind of permitting that you were required to do for your particular business, profession, industry, then that will most likely have some kind of annual requirements to keep up with. So how do you keep track of this stuff? Because it is a lot, right? Because they're all different deadlines. Some things are once a year, every other year, 5 years, 10 years, monthly, quarterly, blah, blah, blah. So first, there's some things that you can just pay someone else to handle. Like if you have an accountant or you have a payroll provider, somewhere like that to handle. You want to make sure they're still doing it because it's your legal responsibility that they still do it. And sometimes places don't. Sometimes they're incompetent or bad people who steal your money. So you want to make sure it's still happening. But besides that, what I recommend is something as simple as having a ticker system, having a calendar system, a reminder system that just reminds you. What I actually use for a lot of things like this is just a Google Calendar. I have a Google Calendar where I put in there reminders and it then pops up saying you need to file XYZ. Super simple and doesn't cost any money and many more money than, if you have a business Google account, you're paying X dollars for that, but you could also just use a free Gmail account that has a calendar attached and you just put those things in your calendar right now. Like you sit down, put in all those things in your calendar. It'll take a while to do the first time and then it just automatically comes up and that's when you do those filings. Again, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. If you found this video helpful, hit the thumbs up, subscribe for more videos like this. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, you can post them in the comments below and I'll try to point you in the right direction. If you have more questions or would like to connect more or get more support, you can join the Patreon or the free Discord. Links are down below. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.